Caroline was a bright and creative young girl who routinely excelled academically. She found great joy in playing with dolls, and she is constantly coming up with fantastical tales about them. One day, Caroline excitedly told her parents she was a twin with someone at school. They were taken aback. But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. Caroline's frequent tales about her twin sister piqued John's interest in her. Her insistence on telling him this story over and over again helped him conclude that she truly believed her twin existed. He reasoned that he should inquire at his daughter's school directly. When he visited his daughter's teacher, she welcomed him with troubling news about Caroline. Something he had never known about his daughter was revealed to him by this stranger. But as he was leaving the school to tell his wife, he witnessed something that sent shockwaves through his entire being. This shocking revelation became a crucial insight into all the confusion that he had. What did John witness on the school grounds? And how did he react to the disturbing evidence he uncovered? What was the gravity of the evidence and why a divorce paper? Caroline, a 9-year-old, was an academic prodigy known for her originality and imagination. Caroline's parents, John and Emily, treasured her as their only child and gave her plenty of opportunities to indulge in imaginative play. Caroline, on a particular day, beamed with excitement as she walked through the door from school. In conversation with John and Emily, she revealed that she had a twin sister named Clara, a student at their school. Caroline's mom laughed and gave John a sideways glance, but he was all ears, hanging on to every word of his daughter's story. John began to question whether or not Caroline was being truthful as she started telling more and more elaborate scenarios. John, in search of clarification, searched online about the phenomenon of children having imaginary companions. As a source of comfort, he learned that children often form attachments to fictional characters throughout their formative years. He had an idea out of the blue, but it would be difficult to implement without his wife finding out. His mission was not hopeless, though. He emailed Caroline's teacher since he couldn't figure out what to conclude. Fortunately, the response from the instructor came the very same day. Her response was straightforward. There is not a single student in my class who goes by the name Clara. However, I cannot comment on the other classes, but I've been meaning to have a conversation regarding your daughter's interactions with other people with either you or Mrs. Tucker. Therefore, I ask that you kindly stop by my classroom after school either tomorrow or on Friday. John was unimpressed by the response he got. He broke the news to his wife that night when she got home from work. John couldn't believe how casually his wife was taking everything. He embarked on his own journey to Caroline's school the following day. He wasn't going to back down so quickly, that's for sure. Caroline's teacher was a beautiful young lady who had just finished college 2 years earlier. She gave John a big smile and a warm welcome into her classroom. "I'm glad that you could make it, Mr. Tucker," he said. "Please call me John." "Okay, John." "I wanted to talk to you about how Caroline interacts or how she doesn't." John liked how the instructor did not waste any time getting to the point, but he was taken aback to learn that his daughter had no friends at school. "See, your daughter doesn't know anyone in this classroom. She is usually very quiet and plays alone. Sometimes she wouldn't even come out to play when they called her." But John felt terrible for his little girl. He knew she could be shy or in her own world sometimes, but he didn't think it would be this bad. He told the teacher that he would talk to his daughter about it and help her as soon as he got home. As John said goodbye to the teacher and walked out of the school, he couldn't believe his eyes at what he saw. It was something incredibly bewildering, and he was absolutely taken aback by it. A little girl who could have been his own daughter was sitting on the seesaw at the playground. Only the fact that she was a little taller made the parallels between them less scary. Everything about her was the same as Caroline. They looked so identical. He watched the young woman get into a car with a man he thought was her father. John was so interested in them that he followed them to their car. He stayed close behind the car so that it was always in his line of sight. He also kept a safe distance so that the father wouldn't notice him. After a 15-minute drive, they got to the other side of town and found a nice street with expensive homes. After following them for a time, he finally saw the car he was following turn into a driveway with the girl and her father inside. 2 further luxury vehicles were parked in front of the stunning mansion. To avoid being seen by the girl or her father, John parked his car further down the road. Through the car's window, he could see their house. As the father and child got out of the car, the sun shone directly into the girl's face. It was almost as though he were gazing upon his daughter at that moment. The only aspects of their physical appearances that were different were their height and the color of their eyes. John waited a little longer in his car after the girl and her father went inside. He had a feeling that something big was going to happen. Then, after a few hours, his wife sent him a text message out of the blue. She asked where he was because she had to leave soon for dinner with her girlfriends, which she had told John about earlier. But as you might guess, because of his sudden quest, he had forgotten about it. John was completely absorbed in his task and didn't realize how much time had passed until he received a text from his wife. The text brought him back to the present moment. He was determined to continue his investigation and didn't want to give up now. To ensure he had more time, he decided to come up with a believable excuse. He told his wife that he would be working late and asked her to find a babysitter for their daughter, Caroline. John wasn't the kind of person who got home late. John rarely wasn't home by 6, so he chose to give Emily more information so she wouldn't change her mind. He told her a lie that his boss had asked him out of the blue to close a big deal for the company that night. He also said that he had just been asked to put together the agreement's documents and slides in a short amount of time. It hurt him to leave his wife in this situation with such short notice. On the other hand, Emily did not like that John was not there. John let out a long sigh. This ridiculous trail has resulted in my daughter being left at home alone. I hope this is worthwhile, he thought to himself. He kept watching the house from the curb and texting his wife occasionally to see how she was spending her evening. This news threw John off. Why didn't she just call him and ask him to come get her? He didn't agree with her at all, so he wanted to call her to ask her to change her mind. But just as he was about to call her to try to change her mind, he saw that something had changed outside the house. He started his car and was about to drive home when the girl suddenly dropped her scooter and jumped up and down in the air. John paid attention to the direction she faced and saw 2 headlights coming their way and figured it was probably the mom arriving home. At first, he didn't want to give it too much attention, but then he noticed something. He saw something that would later leave a permanent dent in his life. He thought of his wife, who drove the same make and type of car when he saw it. But when he looked more closely, he saw that the number on the number plate also seemed familiar. John was shocked by what he saw. Was he seeing this correctly? As the car got closer, he looked at the license plate again to make sure it was his wife's. He asked himself, wait, what is my wife doing here? He couldn't believe it when his wife got out of the car and gave the little girl a tight hug. She went up to the man and kissed him on the lips. John's heart sank when he realized that he had been wallowing in his wife's deception and lies. The reality of the falsehood of their marriage begins to play out in his mind. He sat in his car and wondered what to do as he watched his wife laughing and conversing with another man. His wife was the mother of Clara. John stepped out of the car and slammed the door behind him in anger before the father, Emily, and the girl could enter the house. After hearing the loud slam of the car door, the family turned to gaze at John. He could see that his wife's face changed in an instant. As John walked fearlessly towards the 3 of them, he saw a sudden change in the man's demeanor. She questioned in bewilderment, "John, what are you doing?" "Wow, what am I doing here? Emily, I could ask you the exact same thing. You're staying at your friend's house, right?" "Tell me this is your friend's house," he angrily replied. The other man, sensing the rising tension, pushed her back gently and then advanced to shield her. Not wishing to get into a confrontation, he inquired coolly, "Who are you?" "I'm her husband. Who are you?" The man looked at Emily with a frown. It was clear that he didn't know what was going on. He felt just as lost as John. "Oh, didn't you know?" John said. "Let me explain," John said next. "About 15 years ago, I married Emily." As John talked, his eyes popped out. "We even have a 9-year-old girl who is just like your little girl. She'd been talking about a girl named Clara who looked exactly like her." John asked the man, "I'm guessing that your daughter's name is Clara?" The man nodded slowly as he listened carefully and took everything in. "Has your daughter ever told you about a classmate named Caroline?" John asked once more. She had run out of room to hide her lies. The man's name is Tom, and Emily married him for 20 years. This suggests that they had Clara before Caroline was born. According to Tom, Emily's work has caused her to be less available at home. He had no idea that she had other commitments. Without Emily's knowledge, Tom had arranged for Clara to attend the same school as Coraline. Because the other school was over an hour away, he decided it would be best for his daughter to be closer to home. The relationship between Tom and Emily had lasted 20 years, and their daughter was older than Caroline. According to Tom, Emily's career has made it difficult for her to maintain stability at home. He did not know she had other commitments. While she was away, Tom made the necessary arrangements for Clara to attend the same school as Coraline. Because the other school was over an hour distant, he thought it best for her to be closer to their house. Emily's alleged remote work has allowed her to spend so much time with John and Caroline at the expense of her relationship with Tom. She told John the same thing, but they just found out that she always visits the other family when she travels for work. For over 12 years, they have lived in the bubbles of a very deceptive woman, raised their families in her lies. They were truly heartbroken and wondered if there was more. When Emily heard Caroline talk about Clara every day, she tried very hard to move Clara again. But it was hard for her to give a good reason because Clara had a lot of friends at the school and it was closer to home. Emily knew deep down that the truth would come out at some point, and since her girls went to the same school, it happened sooner rather than later. There was no more getting around it. Tom and John divorced Emily and were granted custody of their children. Even though Tom and John lived in different places, they stayed in touch, which helped the girls form an amazing bond. Emily felt bad about what she did and wanted things to be great again. However, she never got married. On the other hand, John's love for his daughter never wavered. Over time, he learned to love her and trust her judgment as she got older.